Good afternoon, and thank you for coming. Welcome to the virtual public hearing on the state of Connecticut plan for the CDBG CV COVID-3 allocation of funding. This is pursuant to the 2019-2020 action plan for the housing and community development, specifically for CDBG COVID. We received a third allocation of funds. What you see on the screen is the cover page of the plan itself. I'll scroll through real quickly, give you a high-level overview, and then we will open for public comment or questions. Please, if you have questions not related to the plan, I'll be happy to stay on after, take other general questions about the department, other activities that are going on, things related to COVID other than CDBG 3. Okay? As I indicated, this is for the third allocation of CDBG funding received under the original CARES Act. This is not funds under the recently passed second COVID relief plan. These are funds that came in under the original CARES Act. I'm going to scroll through quickly and hit the highlights, if you will. This plan is a summary of the two prior plans relative to the funds we received under the CARES Act. As you can see from the table at the bottom of this page, we received 3 allocations. During the first allocation, we received funds for CDBG, ESG, and HOPWA. Second allocation, we received additional funds for CDBG and ESG. And the third allocation was CDBG only. Totals are listed on the table shown. $30,365,085 for CDBG, $20,750,885 for ESG, and the initial $38,662 for HOPWA. We are having this virtual public hearing as part of our amended and abbreviated citizen participation plan. We are obligated to post a plan for public comment for 5 days on the department's website. Due to the recent holidays, presidential holidays, we extended that for a full 8 days. And this public hearing is the day before the last. So we will take additional written public comment through business tomorrow, Friday, February 19th. So if you have other comments or if you'd like to submit written comment in addition to any public comments you make today, you do have another 26 or so hours, about 26 hours. In short, our intention for this allocation is to provide assistance to entitlements and or non-entitlements relative to preparing, preventing, or responding to the COVID-19 pandemic as required under the original CARES Act legislation. In particular, this plan identifies specific state activities we intend to carry out directly, which is allowed under the provisions of that original CARES Act. This allocation is for the additional $10,759,215. As I indicated earlier, we have a little over $30 million in total for CDBG and to address CDBG eligible activities. We will carry out any eligible activity or consider any eligible activity allowed under the CDBG regulations as long as it prepares for, prevents, or responds to the COVID-19 pandemic. The tables on page 8 lay out the individual components of the 3 allocations. The first 2 we covered in previous virtual public hearings. Today's is focused predominantly on this first table. Again, we received a total of $10,759,215. The department intends to set aside 5% of the award for administrative costs, and up to 2% of the award for technical assistance related activities, including training to entitlements and non-entitlements. Meaning we have a little over 10 million, specifically $10,006,071 of program dollars for CDBG eligible activities. Should the federal government reprogram additional funds, we will use them consistent with this plan, as we do on a regular basis for all of our plans. And as I indicated, we do intend to use the funds for any eligible use that prepares for, prevents, or responds to COVID-19. Any entitlement or non-entitlement is encouraged to apply to the department for access to such funds. We are taking open applications at any time from any municipality with an intent to address COVID-related issues. Unlike previous plans where the state reserved the right to do direct activity, we do intend to do direct activity with these funds in this particular plan. We have identified those activities here, beginning at item 8 and beyond. It is the state's intent, wherever necessary, to use the CDBG funds directly to support the severe cold weather protocol and the shelter deconcentration. The table laid out before you identifies as a current intent to spend up to $576,000 towards those costs. Since this plan was produced, we have recently learned that FEMA is willing to contribute 100% of those eligible costs, as opposed to what was originally 75%. We're withholding this $500,000 for future activity should the emergency declaration be rescinded and have the need for those funds. If we end up not having to use these funds for the severe cold weather protocol or shelter deconcentration, we will reprogram them as previously stated for other eligible CDBG activities. Finally, it is the department's intent to use up to $13.5 million of the total $30 million for the acquisition of hotels or other facilities to support the decompression of our homeless shelters in order to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. With that, I will stop. What I ask is if you have comments or questions related to CDBG 3 specifically, or the COVID relief CDBG funds, please raise your hand using that tool at the top of the screen, and we will get to you in rotation. Since we have a limited number of individuals participating, I won't put a time limit on your comment. However, please try to be brief and direct. And if you have questions related to other items of the department after we close the public hearing, I'll be happy to take those questions. All right, anyone, please raise your hand if you'd like to start. Oh, and when you do so, please unmute yourself. In Teams, we don't have the ability to unmute you. You have the ability to unmute yourself. I will leave the plan up in case you have specific questions you want to reference it. Any questions, concerns, or comments, please feel free to raise your hand. And if you're on the phone, remember to unmute is *6. And if you are the individual on the phone at 942-1178, please feel free to just unmute and ask a question or make a comment. Everybody who's here, just hear me talk. Okay. If there are no questions or comments specific to the CDBG CV3 plan, I will be happy to close the. Oh, I see David. Finally, there you are.
All right, Michael. I just needed to formulate my question.
Sure.
Thank you for the walkthrough. It did clarify a couple of things for me already. So I guess just to repeat back to you and make sure I've understood correctly, this current document, this amendment, summarizes and updates plans to date. And then there's this new category for the 13 and some million, which it appears mostly is or all is intended for direct activities. So municipalities would be applying for funds that might still be available under the tranche 1 and tranche 2. And what we're talking about under this 13 million or so in tranche 3, you're looking all at direct activities for that, a combination of the cold weather or whatever expenses don't get reimbursed, and then hotel acquisition.
And David, let me clarify a little bit. HUD looks at CDBG CV as a single total value, $30 million. They gave it to us in 3 piles, but when HUD talks about it or looks at it, they look at it as a single allocation of a little over $30 million. Of that total $30 million, yes, we intend to allocate up to 13.5 of it for direct state activity. That means the balance, which is 16.5 million, is available for direct activity by entitlements or non-entitlements.
And so as a follow-up, would you anticipate needing a further amendment if FEMA does reimburse 100%?
No, or... FEMA has said they will reimburse it 100%.
Okay.
So right now, again, when we drafted the plan, they had not made that determination.
Right.
They have since. So those funds are available for other CDBG eligible activities, but we are holding them through this plan should the declaration change or should additional costs associated with the severe cold weather protocol increase or need to be further allocated. If that doesn't happen, then that $500,000 will be available for other CDBG eligible COVID-related activity.
Which could be the entitlement, non-entitlement, or direct state. That's still undetermined. Or
at this point, it would be for entitlement or non-entitlement. If we were to use more than $13.5 million for direct state activity, we would actually have to do another amendment.
That would trigger
and come out to the public.
But what's currently being reserved for direct state activity could revert to municipal requests.
That is correct.
Okay.
Without amendment. That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. I appreciate the comment and the questions. Anybody else? Just raise your hand, or again, if you're on the phone, just unmute. I will take your silence as my summary being sufficient to have answered any questions you might have. Again, if you have comments, please submit them in writing to the department at ct.housing.plans@ct.gov. That's ct.housing.plans@ct.gov. It's the same email box you used to register for this public hearing. We will be taking written public comments through close of business tomorrow. Those public comments will be incorporated into the plan when we submit it to HUD for their approval. I, at this point, then will, I'll give you one last shot. Anybody, any comment or any questions related to CV3? Okay, thank you. Laura, you can stop recording as soon as I say thank you all for coming. This virtual public hearing is closed.